always a time of reflection and new beginnings. I'm kicking off with a fresh new look for the podcast and a bit of reflecting on both the past and the future. We know life is marked by cycles, times of sowing, times of growth, and times to harvest. Each cycle brings unique lessons and blessings. And if we're open to them, we gain insight that fuel our growth and prepare us for whatever adventure lies ahead. Welcome to Living with, I almost said the little name. Welcome to A Bit of Insight with Lisa Mosbey. I am changing the podcast. Today is the first day of the new name, the new podcast. And, we're talking about reflecting today on this launch, this first day, because what do we reflect on? What we reflect on actually formulates, it changes, it helps us to discover what it is that we want to do in the future. And so, what are you reflecting on? What what intentions are you setting to achieve or change in the future? Reflections often get lost in the busyness of our daily lives, right? It happens. We stop. We don't take the time to stop and sit and reflect. We get caught up in the moment, get caught up in the chaos sometimes, get caught up in what needs to be done. Yet it's in those moments of quiet contemplation that we gain the clarity needed to understand who we have become and where we wish to go. I invite you to take time to reflect on last year and honor the milestones and the challenges, even the triumphs and the losses that you experienced. Your experiences, both good and bad, have shaped you in ways seen and unseen, and they're the foundation upon which you stand today. Not just from last year, but all the years of the past. Have you gone back and reflected on your childhood and the great things that you bring forth today because of the challenges you went through? Has it created resiliency in you? Has it caused you to become a stronger person? Or has it broken you down and you need to be able to process some of that stuff so that you can move on and step into the person that you want to be? I bring this up because I've been an entrepreneur for 40 years and I wanted to start this podcast. I started this podcast 2 years ago to share some of that experience because I get people who call me and ask, what should I do next? What are my next steps? What works? What doesn't work? What went well? Those kinds of questions when people are trying to discover for themselves where they're going, what they're doing, and how that's going to work. So I wanted to create a space where entrepreneurs could come, ask those questions, and get insight. Also, learn from guests who've been there before, who've had successes, who've had failures, who've triumphed in their businesses and who had to let go of their business or totally revamp and pivot their business. So that's what this is all about. We're talking about a little bit of insight from years of experience. And I want to start with reflecting. I've been doing reflecting the last probably about a month, thinking about where do I want to go for the coming year and who do I want to serve and what do I want that to look like, setting new processes and operating procedures into place so that I can be better. I can step up. I can impact more. I can achieve those desires of my heart, if you will. So I want to start sharing a couple of questions. I want you to ask yourself, what have I learned this last year? What came forth? If I sit and reflect, it may have been the times that were the most challenging where your greatest learning came from, but acknowledge it, recognize it. How have you changed? What strengths did you discover within yourself to get through the toughness? Did you give up on your business? Did you bury your head in the sand? Did you stop going into your room, into your home office, or just ignore those customer calls when they came in because you just didn't have the energy? Maybe it didn't have the vision, mission, and purpose set on your heart crystal clear so that those challenges didn't stop you. They fueled you. They They created fire underneath you. What relationships lifted you up this last year? How do you get more time with those people? And the flip side is, what relationships do you need to spend less time investing in? You can love people from afar. There is no rule about that. Some people lift us up. Some people zap our energy and may cause us to actually lose momentum. They're just at a different space and place in their life at the moment. And you can lift them up. You can be supportive of them, maybe send them a card or an email or text. But do you really need to invest hours and hours listening to their stories? Or would it be better served you jumping into the desires of your heart and helping to support them in that direction? Lead by being successful. Lead by coming out of your shell and being who it is that you want to be and how you want to show up in the world, and set an example, and then invite people along. Let them come alongside you as you're reaching for your goals, as you're striving to grow your business or grow your family or move into and create momentum for success, to feed your family or to impact the world. Have a mission that's so great the world would be harmed if you didn't fulfill it. That's what we're talking about today. What can I do to be a better person? And how is that going to show up? Those are just some of the ideas. When I reflect, those are I'll call them the tough questions, because sometimes they're not easy to answer. And so these questions, when answered honestly, can inspire us to take action and improve our lives. And when we improve our lives, we improve the people around us, and we improve our community, because we go out there and we make an impact. We make a difference when we live on purpose with intention. Through doing that, there is a process. I call it the gift of letting go. Reflection is not just about honoring what has come before us, but it's also a process of recognizing what we need to let go. I touched on that a little bit when I was talking about relationships. Sometimes we need to create some distance. Just as a gardener prunes the branches of trees and bushes to encourage healthy growth, we must release anything that's holding us back. We can prune our branches, so to speak. I remember when I learned to trim rose bushes. I lived in Nevada, and I had quite a few rose bushes in my yard because they do really well in that heat if you have a drip system. At the end of pruning them, it was so hard. The first year I didn't prune them enough. And then I learned, and I took some gardening classes. And at the end of pruning them, there was nothing left but sticks, bare branches. The plant looked dead with no leaves, clipped branches. And I just thought, oh my gosh, what did I do? I feel like I killed it. But yet, year after year, those branches came back full and vibrant. Pruning after pruning, it came back better sometimes than before, especially if it was done properly. How do we come back on fire for the future, vibrant and lifted up? What needs to be pruned from us? Those experiences that have affected us, those traumas that we're carrying forward. How do we reflect on those things that are holding us down? They're like anchors that we've thrown over the side of the boat, and we're dragging them behind us, and we can't move forward. Whether it's a limiting belief, a fear, or an expectation that no longer aligns with who you are, I invite you to embrace the freedom that comes with pruning it. Let it go. Letting go is, in most cases, a gift that we give ourselves, that we can bless and release what no longer serves us. It creates space within us, space for new dreams, new relationships, new strengths to emerge. I invite you to consider giving yourself permission to release what weighs you down so that you can soar higher in the coming year. After 2 seasons of podcasting, I've decided to let go and rebrand the show. I've been an entrepreneur for 40 years, and it comes to my attention often that I have had many experiences when I share stories of how things didn't work or mistakes that were made. People find that to be valuable to the present. And it's valuable to entrepreneurs today so that they don't make those same mistakes. Now, things change over 40 years. We don't do business the same way we did. And I've progressed. I've moved into digital marketing and being a digital marketing coach. So I've continued to add tools to my toolbox to stay relevant, to stay on top of, the things that are happening in the world and how businesses are run and what entrepreneurs need today. And so I wanted to continue to share those lessons that I've learned, but I also wanted to share a bit of insight from my lessons. Like, what could I have done better? It's a place of reflecting on the last 40 years, and hopefully those messages and those lessons will save somebody else from making a $30,000 printing mistake because the copyright didn't get filed in time and somebody else filed a copyright using a similar title to ours before we did. So there are big mistakes, $30,000 printing brochures, and there are littler mistakes, and there's hiring mistakes, and there's knowing when to evolve, when to move out of what we're currently doing into something that's land. That's all been my intention for the last show, but I've had a good amount of feedback. And though people loved the podcast name, Living with Favor, it wasn't portraying the message that was bringing people in. It was around those 5 pillars that kept me balanced: faith, abundance, vitality, overflow, and relationships. Those are the 5 balance on how I maintain my health and the people I worked with and, managed crises. But that wasn't really coming across. It wasn't a way of inviting people into the podcast. So I've decided to just say, hey, I'm going to share a bit of insight about health, wealth, and everything else. And the name will say that. It's a bit of insight for me, a 40-year entrepreneur who has gone into health and wellness after being in the tech field because of personal health things that had come up with myself and my family. And then how did I switch careers from digital marketing to health and wellness, had a practice for a long time, and then switched back into serving wellness entrepreneurs because we need these folks. We need those, what other people call alternative, what I call the norm. These people who can help us deal with our mental, emotional, physical challenges, our health and our wellness, all of those, our health, wellness, and our wealth, because I believe that even people who are in that wealth field can help us with our mindset around money. So wellness is all encompassing of our entire life, of creating balance. For me, wellness is where that balance comes from. When we have a great mindset, when we're getting enough sleep, when we're filling our body with enough nutrients, we've managed our finances, our relationships, and we're doing it all with a whole lot of fun so that we have this vibrance for life, this will to continue and to keep going. Now, I used the balance there and I threw that word in, and I don't mean balance like a scale where everything has to be unbalanced. I mean balance meaning that we are of sound mind, sound body, sound health, and we shift and we can put our energy to where it needs to go without losing our balance. Because really, I don't think all things in life get the same attention. If your child is going through a health crisis, that's more important than the job than your business right now. So getting partnerships and collaboration with other people who can support you in your business. Pick up the pieces when you're down. Just because we're entrepreneurs doesn't mean we need to work alone. But balance is having some of those operating procedures in place. So then when your child is sick, you can be with them. Or if you need to take care of your parents, like I was doing for the last couple of years, you don't lose sight of the end goal for the business. You help to put people in place, maybe bringing on a virtual assistant who you can teach and train to do a lot of the work that you were doing. And you spend your time on your A time or your B time, that time with clients, that time fulfilling what needs to be fulfilled for your business, and let your assistant or your friend or your partner or somebody else pick up the C and D time, the administrative functions and the other things that keep the business going. Balance is being able to move these things around as an entrepreneur to make space for everything that you want to do, for the fun you want to have in your life, for the finances that you want to create, for time with God, for time with your family, and time for relationships, and time for your health, your self-care, and your well-being. Balance is being able to move around those five spokes effortlessly or with assistance and still be able to function, not being completely derailed and completely focused on business, driven with work, and letting all those other things fall to the wayside. So it's not balanced. The scale is not necessarily equal. Equal attention doesn't go to all of them, but the energy can shift around that wheel, keeping it moving and keeping it flowing. And so that's what we're talking about with a bit of insight. How do we create that momentum in our life in five areas: faith, fitness? I use fellowship as all of our relationships in our life, finances, and fun. We do it with all fun. So those are the shift in the pillars. I think they're a little bit clearer, better understood. And I thank Tony Robbins for that, because years ago, 20 years ago, I went through a lot of Tony Robbins training, and he had 10 spokes on that wheel, and I've had to narrow it down because 10 was too many. I had to bundle a few of those together. I like five because five always works on my fingers. Mel Robbins says 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get going. I like those five pillars. So that's the foundation of what we're going to be talking about on A Bit of Insight with Lisa Mosbey. We're going to talk about health, wealth, and everything else, but we're going to use it under the guise of those five pillars. So as I move forth, setting intentions for my future, I'm going to invite you to do the same. With a renewed sense of clarity, intentions are a bit different than goals. They, to me, are the heart's desire that drives us forward. We can set goals on paper, but if there's no emotion, if there's no passion, desire, mission, vision, purpose behind them, we're less likely to achieve them. Intentions provide what I call a beacon of purpose, illuminating our way when the path feels uncertain. When we're clear on our intentions and we've set them with passion and purpose, the way stays lit. The no's become easier. We know when we're saying no to this, we're saying yes to our business, yes to our family, yes to our friends, yes to our finances, yes to having fun in our life. Sometimes we need to say no to those things that are not in alignment with us. So when we identify our intentions from that space in our heart, that heart's desire, our vision becomes clearer and we can put it into a mission. That's where I hope to take you this next year. The why that makes you cry, you've heard it before. Every motivational speaker, coach, trainer is talking about it. It's the first place that we generally go when we work with folks, because if the why doesn't make you cry, if it's not strong enough to get you out of bed every day, to get you in the office every day, then let's reevaluate. Let's reevaluate it. Let's find that heart's desire and set those intentions. And sometimes we just need a little bit of insight from somebody who's been there before to help us get clear on that. So I want you to consider what brings you joy and purpose. What sparks your creativity and what makes you feel alive? Contemplate how you can contribute to the world in ways that only you can. Let's shape the desires of your heart. Let's shape those intentions, taking those desires and turning them into intentions, to help you step forward, to achieve new heights this next year, to impact your community on a much grander scale. And maybe your community is simply your family, your immediate family, or your extended family. That's still your community. How do you want to impact them? How do you want them to grow alongside you? How do you want them to look at you and see what it is that you're doing and how you're moving forward? How are you going to light up that community that you work in? And I want you to start writing these things down. Speak them out loud. Hold them close to your heart. This is you. It's your insight, your desires. Let's move it into reflecting and taking action for the first quarter of this year. And I say this not just for you, but for me, because this is what I've been doing. It's my intention for moving forward this year as I start to dive deeper, recreate who I am, and show up more powerfully with an ability to do more impact. We do this with the power of the pivot. It's just a pivot. Airplanes are off course, some say up to 99% of the time. They set their destination and they are just course correcting all the way till their destination. But that journey can be beautiful. We can look out the windows and see the water and communities and swimming pools and baseball fields and golf courses. That journey can be beautiful along the way, but it's a constant need for a course correct. And pivots don't have to be monumental. I think changing the podcast name and doing a rebrand felt monumental for me. But when I was working with my staff and people that are helping me, they made it so simple. Let's create a logo. What does it look like? Great. Let's pick our logo colors. Hey, you know what? Let's create a brand book, which has our fonts and images and things how do we want to portray ourselves? Go grab images from the internet and magazines and different places and say, that's what it feels like. That's what the office feels like. That's what, how I want my clients to feel, or my audience when I'm speaking, how they feel. Like having those images in what we call a brand book. I can look through that brand book and get a sense of where we're going, what we're creating, what we're building. Life, like business doesn't always go as planned, but sometimes the most extraordinary success stories come from unexpected shifts in direction. And I'm hoping that that's what we're creating right now, is a shift in direction that is going to lead us to new heights. We take inspiration from some of the most well-known brands that didn't start off as household names. You may have heard of a little company called Netflix. They began as a DVD rent by mail service that has transformed the global streaming services around the world, around the world, right? They're a streaming service leader. I'm thinking that they're number one. I didn't look it up, but I know that there's been a lot. They were number one for a long time, but there's other competition coming in there. I know Amazon has streaming services, and Hulu and Disney and all these other people are entering the field, but Netflix led the way. And they are the leader in that field, but they were nobody, and they had to pivot and grow and adjust as technology changed. There were no more DVDs. Young kids today probably don't even know what those are. So how do we pivot and adjust and reevaluate so that we become maybe a Netflix for those of you who desire that. But for some of us, it's just having enough for our family to go on vacation, enough to eat organic food versus, right, other food, enough to live in a beautiful home or have the view that you want, enough to enroll your kids in sports. I don't know what it is for you, but having enough, or having more than enough, or having an obscene amount, wherever you are on that spectrum, how do you make the shifts to get there? If you're not happy and fulfilled where you are right now, it's the pivot, it's that pause or that pivot and reflecting on what that could be that will help you to get there. Another one that I was thinking about is Instagram. We've got Facebook and Instagram. Instagram started as a location-based check-in app where people would check in at different events and things. And they've evolved into this photo sharing phenomenon. I started, playing around with Instagram this year by no means am I proficient at it yet. But I love it. I love scrolling through the pictures. Honestly, Facebook has moved out of my peripheral a little bit. My account got hacked and Facebook didn't want to work with me to get it back. And I had a very large group of 38,000 herbalists and wellness practitioners in there, and kind of lost touch with all of them because of what happened with that. I'm still a member of the group, but there is no leader. Facebook won't appoint a leader. And so it's just lingering out there until at some point they will shut it down. And I was really disappointed with that. So there's lessons to be learned, and I'll share that insight over the next 52 weeks. How did I protect myself from that? Why was I letting that grow on Facebook and not getting it off into a CRM? Question, and we're going to talk about it. But within 2 years, of the pivot, Instagram grew over 30 million users and was acquired by Facebook for $1 billion in 2012. Most of us didn't know that. We thought that they were independent, but you've probably seen that Facebook, if you post on Instagram, it'll put it on Facebook, and vice versa. If you put it on Facebook, it'll go to Instagram, because Facebook owns Instagram now, and I didn't know that. That was something that I learned. I hadn't been paying attention to what was happening in that social space with different companies that are joining forces. But you can reach the same audience. I can spend my time on Instagram where I love the pictures, I love the brief little blurbs. I don't know. I just don't get caught up in the scrolling like I do on Facebook. It's really quick. And so Instagram is actually kind of fueling my fire right now when it comes to social media. And so many other people I know that are of my age have also embraced it. We were all over on Facebook for a long time, and we're starting to embrace the technology of Instagram. So what is it for you? What needs to shift? What needs to pivot? What are you looking to change for yourself this year? Is it new technology? Is it new tools? Is it rebranding, getting a new logo, a new color, creating a brand book for yourself? YouTube launched as a video-based dating site. Did you guys know it was a dating site? But after observing that their users were more interested in sharing videos of all types, the founders opened the platform to any video content. That pivot allowed them to become the largest video sharing platform in the world. And they are a huge a search engine now. You say, oh, I'm going to Google it rather than I'm going to search for it. Many people say, oh, let's just look it up on YouTube. And they search for, well, I added mirrors to the outside of my bike, and I had to cut little holes in the side of the handlebars. I watched a YouTube video, got out the X-Acto knife, figured out how to do it. I learned how to prime and paint all the kitchen cabinets and take down the doors and put on new hardware, all on YouTube. It's a go-to place for we call micro learning, quick instant fixes on how to get things done. They are an amazing company and provide amazing services. Another one that I have not adapted, one that I don't use, is Slack. But it was built as a communication tool for gaming companies. I don't game, it wasn't on my radar. They shut down, and yet today it connects teams and businesses worldwide and was just acquired by Salesforce, one of the largest CRMs in the world right now. A CRM is a contact relationship manager, and they've integrated with Slack so that they create better virtual communication within teams on there. It's like some of these businesses, the pivots are what was the fire, the rocket that actually launched them. So where are you in your business? Are you making all that you want to make? Are you impacting all those you want to impact, serving the communities you want to serve? Or do you need to do a little bit of a pivot? Twitter was created to be a podcasting platform, but pivoted when giant Apple launched its own podcasting platform, and it became clear that they could not compete with that. That pivot ended up revolutionizing how people share short form content, because you only put 150-ish characters in the short forms. And that's how it was launched. Currently, they enjoy a peak valuation of around $31 billion. And Elon Musk is part of that. He took over, and there's another pivot happening within Twitter. It's now called X. They did a rebrand themselves and shifted the direction slightly to fit with where Elon Musk's vision is going. So those are just some of the examples of huge companies that you've probably interacted with, at least one of those, I'm sure. Where they began, where they are now, and where are they going? Like, that's the question. Where are these huge companies going? And how do we follow their lead in pivoting, reflecting, creating intentions from the heart, and figuring out who we want to serve? These businesses found themselves at crossroads, and instead of sticking rigidly to their original vision, they embraced the opportunity to pivot, unlocking greater success, maybe the greatest success that many of them have ever had as businesses. Can you imagine? I don't know that I ever want to be that big. I don't know that that's my cup of tea. And maybe it's not yours either, but we'll work in the world that we're in right now and see where it goes. So, what does that mean for the rest of us? If you're feeling stuck, uninspired, or like your current path isn't yielding the results that you want, perhaps it's time to consider a pivot. It's not about giving up on your dreams, it's about redefining it and having the courage to evolve. I'm pivoting too. We're all embracing the power of the pivot. Um, at some point in our life, we shift. You've done it before, and maybe it's time to do it again. After 2 years of focusing on creating a space for entrepreneur experts to share their message, we're now expanding to include workshops, accountability calls, and we want to monetize our message through paid memberships and shows. This shift allows us to inspire women and increase their reach, generating greater revenue while they share their expert messages and impact their communities for greater good. I put that out there to let you know this is what I'm doing, and I invite you to come to the podcast, to come alongside us. What is it? Flattery, like copying is the best form of flattery, I think is that saying, something around that. Copy what we're doing. Come alongside, because if you want to shift, if you want to change, we're in the midst of it here. And we'd love for you to do it with us. If you need a change in your business, there's no greater time to make that shift, and we're going to help you with it. If you need some coaching around it, we're here for that too. But if you just want to watch the podcast, meet the expert guests that I'm bringing in, the people who have had success. We're talking about business successes. We're talking about health successes. How do we improve faith, fitness, fellowship, finances, and do it all with a smile on our face and joy in our heart. We make it fun. That's a lot. You know, the world is constantly changing, and so are the needs of women leaders. By pivoting, we can create a space for wellness entrepreneurs to build, expand, and be uplifted and supported. So that's the mission on my heart right now. And I'll be sharing that, as I mentioned, over the next 52 weeks. This is where we're going to dive deeper. So if you're considering if you're considering a pivot in your personal life, your career, your business, remember that change is often where the magic happens, just like Netflix, Instagram, YouTube, Slack, and Twitter. Your next move could redefine your future. And if you need a little support around that, get involved in our community. Watch for more on what that community looks like, and we'll have invitations for you. But I just wanted to introduce it today. And thank you so much for listening and sharing this time. If you would like to talk about your business, you can pop on over to lisamosbey.com, and that's Lisa, MOSBEY.com. And there's a button right at the top to click book a meeting with Lisa, and it's we'll do a 30-minute conversation about your business and where you might want to pivot, or if you're considering a pivot, what could that look like? I'm happy to chat with you about that. Let's talk about your year, your business, and where it's headed. And then come on back. Join us back here at the podcast. I'm going to leave you with this week's wisdom. Don't be afraid to pivot. You never know what greatness lies just around the corner. Thank you so much for joining me on A Bit of Insight. Come on back next week when we're learning how to be imperfect, the 7 lessons for embracing imperfections. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.